There was something about cars from a very early age that kind of ticked all the right boxes. When I was growing up, you know, I started reading about the lineage of Porsches, and I saw the racing heritage they had, and the sound of them and everything else was just kind of really evocative for me. My mum bought me the Love Bug, you know, that 60s film that had a Volkswagen Beetle. It was quite infamous. And there was something about the shape of that car and the sound of the made that kind of, I don't know, kind of rang true to me. Dad bought an 83 Targa, and eventually my mum ended up driving that car more than he did. She took me to kindergarten with that car, and as we were driving away, 4 men in balaclavas just ran across the street, jumped into an estate and sped off. So being Colombo that she was, she detected that it was probably going to be a bank robbery. So she decides, in her infinite wisdom, to go chasing after the car through London. So the car's screaming through London, she's yelling at me to remember the number plate of this car. That trip for me really showed me what a Porsche could do, really, and it kind of cemented everything for me. Most of my stuff is air-cooled. Not that I have a problem with the modern stuff, but I love the air-cooled stuff. And I'll start trying to find cars that kind of fill the gaps in what it is I'm trying to experience with air-cooled cars. Each car, you know, gives you a real different driving challenge. And I think first and foremost, you know, I might be a Porsche owner, or that's the way I might be seen, but relatively speaking, I'm a driver first and foremost, and just old 911s with their engine hanging in the wrong place and everything else gives you the kind of challenges I'm after as a 911 driver. I'm a big fan of music, you know, like I went through a stage where I felt like I was hitting a brick wall with music, because a lot of music is mass produced and it's not so much about the journey, it's about singles. And with vinyl, as cliched as it sounds, you really get that journey that goes through it. And it's the same kind of thing with Porsches or with old cars, you know, the hunt, as opposed to walking in a dealer and buying a brand new car. The idea was this car that it was going to be a strong candidate for taking on GT3s. And I kind of get a kick out of refusing that 911s or old 911s have their limitations. And trying to build like a basic car that hasn't come from Stuttgart in Germany and, you know, has had huge amounts of money developed in it. I quite like the idea that, you know, a bunch of great guys and Porsche enthusiasts I met over the years could help me put together a car that can at least ruffle some feathers on the track. The car's called Edith, and Edie Sedgwick was a Nick girl in the 1960s. She spent a lot of time in the factory, which was Andy Warhol's kind of melting pot of talent. And he had a lot of femme fatales in there, girls that were, you know, getting themselves in trouble and were always on the brink of getting themselves killed in some ways, and sure enough, Edie Sedgwick did. And I think the representation with this car is that, you know, it is a car that is trying to constantly kill you. It is a bit of a femme fatale. It lures you in, you know, into a false sense of security, but you've got to be awake to drive it. You know, you can't be doing a small little cruise, little cam behind like there's no business. You know, the gearbox is heavy. The gearbox is a little bit slow, but, you know, put in the effort and you can actually make it go fast. And, you know, no traction control, no ABS, none of that. It's really just you and your talent. And if you run out of it, it'll teach you a lesson.